the beautiful experiments performed by Ampere, leading to the definition of his fundamental law of forces and establishment of the magnetic induction vector, magnetic vector potential, and the solenoidal character of the magnetic field. If we consider the forces on a moving charge produced by an external agent, this force is given by the Lorentz force law, which is F is equal to Q open brackets E plus V cross B. It is a fundamental law. Magnetic forces are forces between currents or moving charges. The expression for a force between two moving charges is far too complicated to be used to define a magnetic quantity. Hence, we consider forces on moving charges. As mentioned, the Lorentz force law was established by Lorentz based on the theories of Clausius. Though Lorentz is usually credited with this law, it was first found by Oliver Heaviside. The Lorentz force law has been verified experimentally for a large range of values. It has also been shown to transform properly between different inertial frames of reference. We now consider the equation of continuity, which is just the restatement of principle of conservation of charge. Charge can neither be created nor destroyed. Electric currents are electrons or charges in motion with a net drift or flow. The charge flow is represented by the amount of charge passing per unit area per unit time through a surface area element at right angles to the flow. This vector is known as the current density J. It is directed along the direction of motion of charges. Continuing with the equation of continuity, we choose a small area delta S. Then, the amount of charge flowing across delta S in unit time is J dot N delta S. N is the unit vector normal to delta S. Suppose we have a distribution of charges whose average motion is a drift with a velocity v. As this distribution passes over a surface element delta S, a charge delta Q passing through a surface element delta S in the time delta T is rho, the charge density. Consider a parallelepiped as shown. Its base is delta S. Its height is delta T V cos theta. Therefore, the quantity of charge flowing out perpendicular to the surface element, that is, flowing out perpendicular to the face of the parallelepiped, is calculated as follows. The volume of the parallelepiped is given by area of the base into height. This is equal to delta S into delta T V cos theta, which is simply equal to V dot N delta S delta T. So delta Q is equal to rho V dot N delta S delta T. Therefore, delta Q by delta T is equal to rho V dot N delta S. Now J dot N delta S, which is equal to delta Q by delta T, is equal to rho V dot N delta S. Therefore, J is simply equal to rho V. For a discrete charge distribution with n charges per unit volume, J becomes equal to nQV. Therefore, total charge passing through any surface S per unit time is delta Q by delta T, which is the current I. So, rho V dot N delta S is equal to J dot N delta S. Therefore, total charge per unit time is integral J dot N delta S. The current I out of a closed surface S represents the rate at which the charge leaves the volume. But charge can neither be created nor destroyed. Therefore, a net current out of a closed surface will result in a net decrease in charge within the surface by the same amount. Therefore, from law of conservation of charge, the integral of J dot N ds is equal to minus dq inside by dt. But q inside is given by integral of rho dv. From Gauss's theorem, we know that integral of J dot N ds is equal to integral of divergence of J dv. Therefore, integral of divergence of J dv is equal to minus d by dt integral rho dv, or divergence of J is equal to minus d rho by dt. Therefore, divergence of J plus d rho by dt is equal to 0. Ampere's fundamental law of forces. In 1819, Oersted quite accidentally discovered that current of electricity exerts a mechanical force on a magnet. Between 1820 and 1825, Ampere, through a very beautiful series of experiments, succeeded in arriving at a set of relations from which the law of force between wires carrying currents could be derived. This slide shows two figures taken from Ampere's memoirs, which represent his series of experiments. Just try to appreciate the beauty and intricacy of the experiments designed by Ampere to establish his fundamental law of forces between wires carrying current. Ampere's memoirs clearly detail the experiments and the experimental setup that he used to prove and establish his experimental fundamental law of forces. Ampere's first experiment showed that two wires very close together, traversed by equal currents but in opposite directions, exert a negligible force on a distant current or current element. Thus, the effects of oppositely directed currents at the same place and of equal magnitudes are null, that is, cancel one another. Ampere's second experiment showed that a current carrying conductor bent or twisted in any manner is equivalent to a series of straight current carrying conductors carrying the same amount of current and coinciding as nearly as possible with a contorted conductor. André-Marie Ampère lived from 1775 to 1836. He was a French physicist and mathematician. André-Marie Ampère worked at the beginning of the 1800s in Paris, France. He used his mathematical and statistical skills to observe and measure natural occurrences that had been discovered by other European scientists. He went on to produce complete proof of the relationship between electricity and magnetism. He also developed a new way of classifying chemical elements. Ampere's name is given to the basic unit of flow of charge, that is ampere or amp. The photograph is that of Ampere's statue in Lyon, France. Ampere's third experiment showed that the force experienced by a wire carrying current is always normal to the wire. The fourth experiment showed that the force exerted by one current element on another must vary as the inverse square of the distance. The diagram shows two closed circuits carrying currents I1 and I2 with current elements dL1 and dL2 separated by a distance r. Consider elementary segments of two current carrying conductors. The current element is denoted by IDL. Magnitude of the current is I. The infinitesimal vector in the direction of the current is dl. The linear charge density is QLV. Then Ampere's results are summarized in the following statement. The magnitude of the force exerted by an element I2 dl2 on an element I1 dl1 in vacuum is proportional to each of the elements and to both sine theta 1 and sine theta 2 as shown in the figure and inversely proportional to the square of their separation. dF1 is equal to C I1 I2 dl1 cross dl2 cross r upon r square. C is an arbitrary constant depending upon the chosen units. In electromagnetic units, C is unity. In SI units, C is mu0 upon 4 pi. Mu0 is the permeability of free space. Mu0 is equal to 4 pi into 10 to the power minus 7, which is equal to 1.257 into 10 to the power minus 6 Henry per meter. Recall that the reciprocal of the radius vector is equal to minus unit vector r upon r square or vector r upon r cubed. Then dF1 can be rewritten as mu0 upon 4 pi I1 I2 dl1 cross dl2 cross gradient of 1 upon r. Analogous to the electric field in electrostatics, we introduce a vector known as magnetic induction and is defined as dF1 equal to I1 dl1 cross dB2, where dB2 is equal to mu0 upon 4 pi I2 dl2 cross r upon r square. dB2 is known as the element of induction. The total induction is the vector sum of all the elements. B is equal to mu0 upon 4 pi closed integral dl cross r upon r square, if it is due to one closed circuit. The units of induction are Newton per ampere meter or volt second per meter square or Weber per meter square. The total magnetic force on an element of a circuit or on a moving charge would be written as F is equal to I dl cross P or F is equal to Q V cross P. Next we discuss vector and scalar magnetic potentials. Ampere's fundamental law of forces is df1 is equal to mu 0 upon 4 pi I1 I2 dl1 cross dl2 cross gradient of 1 upon r. db2 is equal to mu 0 upon 4 pi I2 dl2 cross r upon r square. b is equal to minus mu 0 I upon 4 pi closed integral dl cross gradient of 1 upon r. b is equal to mu 0 I upon 4 pi closed integral gradient of 1 upon r cross dl. Now consider a vector A and a scalar u. From vector algebra, we know that curl of UA is equal to U curl of A minus A cross gradient of U, or minus A cross gradient of U is equal to curl of UA minus U curl of A. Applying this relationship, we get gradient of 1 upon r cross dl is equal to minus dl cross gradient of 1 upon r, which is equal to curl of dl upon r minus 1 upon r curl of dl. The operator curl is with respect to x, y and z, whereas dl is independent of the coordinates of the point at which p is being determined. Therefore, the curl of dl will always be 0, which simply means that the gradient of 1 upon r cross dl is equal to curl of dl upon r. So b is equal to mu 0 I upon 4 pi closed integral curl of dl upon r. Now, the closed integral is with respect to dl. The curl operates upon r. So we consider the integral and the curl independent of each other, as a result of which we can take the curl outside the integral sign, then giving us b is equal to curl of mu 0 I upon 4 pi closed integral dl upon r. This is what gives us the relationship b is equal to curl A, where we have defined A to be equal to mu 0 I upon 4 pi closed integral dl upon r. The fact that b can be written as a curl of a vector is a very important result. The vector A, which is known as the vector potential, has units of volts second per meter. Since the divergence of curl of any vector is 0, then divergence of curl of A is 0, which gives us divergence of B is equal to 0. If divergence of B is equal to 0, what does it mean? From Gauss's theorem, we have integral of B dot n ds is equal to divergence of B dV, where S encloses V. This means the flux of B over any closed surface is 0. Then lines of magnetic induction have no origin of end and form closed curves. The direction of lines of induction represent the direction of B. The spatial density of lines of induction represent the magnitude of B, and also the isolation of a single magnetic pole is impossible.